Welcome back to Orange Nation. Happy birthday, Jazzy Jeff. This might be my favorite Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff song. Brand New Funk.
All right, let's go to our guest line to bring on our only guest today. If you happen to be watching us on QSportsTalk.com, you see Gerry McNamara live and in person, brought to you every week here by William Mattar. Gerry, great win. Congrats on the victory. We'll get into the final play here in a moment, but I want to start with, and I know Quadir's getting a lot of the headlines, and rightfully so. He made the big shot, but we got to start with the play of J.J. Starling, somebody I know that you work with on a regular basis, and he has been phenomenal these last two games. What has allowed him to kind of step up his play and be the player that we all know he can be, right?
Yes. We had come back. We obviously didn't play very well at North Carolina. And we had a late practice the next evening. And he had come in. He came in, him and Justin, and early that afternoon, we got a really good workout in, hour and a half session, all speed and fast and quick shooting. And, then we sat down, we all talked. And, one of the things that I thought that, in JJ's game, he just wasn't necessarily being as aggressive, as he's capable of being. Obviously that comes off his confidence in his jump shot. Everything's going to stem from that. So we had a good shooting workout, and we worked out some of the mechanics and the kinks. And, then it became about applying pressure when you're in ball screen action, applying pressure when you have open gap in 45-degree angles off of both driving angles. And, I just felt like going into Pittsburgh, he had a rejuvenated energy and hunger going into that game of, proving what type of player he was and kind of imprinting himself on the game. And he made some huge plays in that game. But really this Miami game, if you look back to the beginning of the second half, we had missed 5 or 6 open threes, like wide open threes. And we were kind of reeling. Our defense was keeping us in there. But JJ hit like 2 big pull-ups back to back to kind of get us going. And, man, when he's shooting the ball that effectively, this kid's a really special player. So a lot of it has stemmed from how he feels about his jumper right now. And, when a player feels like that in his shot, everything else kind of rounds into form.
You mentioned that every week we have a different punching bag on your team as a player, and JT has struggled shooting the ball. What can you guys do to get him back on track?
It's the same thing that I just said with JJ. We've just got to get in and work on it. And mainly, as a player, you go through these ups, downs. JT was really a stabilizing force for us in the first half of this season. And really early on was one of our leading scorers and was our leading rebounder. So, I don't think he gets enough credit for his intelligence in terms of the scout of ball screen coverage. We're asking him to play out of position in a lot of different scenarios where he's guarding guys that are really centers and kind of holding his own. But he's got to maintain his aggression level and just continue to stay confident. We believe in him as a shooter. He can't lose confidence in his own self as a shooter. And, that all stems from the work, and the kid's religious about it. He comes in every day. He's everything you ask for in a player in terms of the preparation side of it. But sometimes you go in these stretches where, game after game where you haven't necessarily gotten a rhythm, it starts to weigh on you a little bit. And you could see it weighing on him a little bit. And, it's our job to make sure we ease the tension and just continue to show confidence in him. And, he's got to continue to do a job that he's done in terms of, really, really understanding every guy that we're going against, of what their strengths are, their weaknesses, where to attack them, how to defend these guys. And he's done terrific at that. He really has. He doesn't get enough credit for it. He's standing guys up. He did it the second half. Matthew Cleveland, we had, certain rules with him that we didn't follow in the first half, and he got loose in transition. And then the second half, he tried to, go one way. JT forced him another, stood him up. I think it led to him picking up the ball or a turnover. But those little things kind of go unnoticed. We tend to focus on the offensive side of the ball a little too often. But with the adjustment that we've made on the defensive side of the ball, he's really been a stabilizing force for us.
All right, let's fast forward to that final play now. Tie game 69. You guys call timeout, and can you kind of go over what was talked about during that timeout, and then how things played out on that final play?
Obviously, you want to put the ball in the hands of really one of your guards, and let them make a play. We thought there was. We had certain action going that we were pretty effective in the second half in terms of placement of players. So we wanted to get the ball to Judah and create a little bit of space for him with an opportunity to touch the paint. He had missed a shot close in and took a really, really good one because of his unselfishness and really the entire game of finding people. With right under a minute, our previous offensive possession, he got to a little, one he makes all the time, that little 12-footer, 13-footer. So we kind of wanted to get him back in that same area and have him kind of read the game. And again, the placement of players was important. So if you have, both shooters are occupying a corner, and, Q was kind of the float guy. We had talked before he went out. He and I both said that, the left wing was probably going to be the bailout area if Judah gets where he's capable of getting. And he made a great pass. And Q, it wasn't an easy one to step in and catch and shoot. He caught it a little bit above his head, and really a lot of credit to him to be able to come down and stabilize his legs and shoot it with balance. But, Q, he likes those moments. He doesn't fear situations, and that's what I think we all appreciate about him. He's a competitor, and he wants big moments. And, really a great job by Judah by getting to the paint, making a play. Good job by Q getting to open space. Really good job by Malik of diving through the middle, and JJ especially coming up. And you're not going to leave Chris Bell on that ball side corner. So it was really a combination of all the pieces in place and two players, connecting on a great finishing shot.
Jerry, it's funny you mentioned Judah there. We took a ton of calls last year after the Miami game about the way he handled the end of the game there. And could you maybe just talk about his growth going, because it's a perfect example of doing the wrong thing one year and doing the absolute right thing the next year, and just his growth as a player?
Well, I think he's starting to, I think he even said it, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw a quote from him even after this game of just being a little bit more patient. He's so gifted individually in terms of being able to have the difficult task of staying in front of him with one defender. And the amount of fouls he draws is pretty much unlike anything of any guard I've ever been around here. He just has that ability to go by and create contact. But, sometimes in that process of being really skilled individually, you force it a little bit and put yourself in certain scenarios where, you take one dribble too much, or you take one pump fake too many, and that extra dribble or extra pump fake or extra step through eliminated an opportunity where you could have made a simple one just by being as talented as you are. And I think that's what he's starting to understand. And when you look at the pieces around him, Chris really shoots it. We believe in JT to really shoot it in the way that JJ has shot it. And I think the Pittsburgh game was a big step for him in terms of controlling a game and not necessarily forcing it offensively. I thought he forced a few plays down the stretch of that game when the game was in doubt, or not in doubt anymore. But for the most part, I thought that was a really good step in the right direction in terms of you can control a game and you can help the pieces around you. Matter of fact, once you help them more, it's going to benefit you the most. And I thought that was, on full display in the last two offensive possessions we had against Miami. The fact that he got to an easy pull-up, he just missed it, but he's going to make it 4 out of every 5 times. He got to his spot because he was willing to pick them apart for, good stretches of that game. And then the last play, you got to the paint, you forced a weak side dig, and you make the correct read. So it's all a part of the process. And for a guy that can get to a lot of spots that certain players can't get to, it's still early in his process of how good I think he can become as a playmaker.
And one more thing that stood out to me about him in the past 2 games: 9 rebounds and 8 rebounds the last 2 games.
He's threatened a triple-double in back-to-back games.
And along those lines, Gerry, we were talking about how you guys have played a lot of close games, and this team seems to have a knack for doing the little things. I go back to that play where Malik Brown on that long rebound somehow like got a fingernail on it and batted it out to Judah, and then in the corner to JJ for a three. Where if Malik doesn't make that extra effort, it's probably a fast break, 2-on-1 back the other way, and instead it's a 5-6 point swing there. This team seems to play really hard, I guess is my point, start to finish. And it seems like you guys are very comfortable in close games. Is that kind of unique to this particular team, I guess, how hard they play? And I know the effort is always there, but again, the fact that this team seems to have really good attention to detail.
Yeah, they've been great. They have. Our best days this year have been scout days, where we're really covering the opposing team. And I'll take it back even before the play that Malik Brown made, which was an incredible play, a game-changing play. The previous possession was one of our best defensive possessions. They set a clear side ball screen on the right wing, and J.J. Starling was the bottom guy on the weak side rotation. And they hit the short roll, and J.J. rotated across the court to tag it. And as he rotated across, Chris Bell rotated down to tag him. And it ended up getting a steal by Chris. And that led to the break, which led to a loose ball, which led to a tip, which led to an extra to tie the game. So I'll take it to the whole possession, a defensive and offensive possession stretch that really changed the flow of that game and allowed us to tie the game. So, I think the big thing is these guys, their attention to detail has been on point. We made a few mistakes, but a few you can make up for. But I've never doubted their competitive nature. That's the one thing that I love about this group. You take it back to the beginning of the year with the Colgate game, to be down, 24 points or so, or something like that, to have the will to fight, to stay in it mentally and keep competing. Those things, they make or break a group. And I thought that was a huge learning experience for them, to never quit, never give up, never stop fighting. And a lot of these guys, that's just who they are. So the more of those guys you have, the better off you're obviously going to be in your program. And I've been really proud of them in terms of their attention to detail when we've led into who we're about to play. They've held true to a lot of the scouts that we've put in place and the game plans that we've had.
All right, let's talk about what's up next now as you get ready for Florida State. And this is a Florida State team that is surpassing a lot of preseason expectations. 5-2 right now in conference, coming off a loss to Clemson. But prior to that, they had won 5 games in a row, beating some good teams along the way, including that Miami team in Miami. Your thoughts on the Seminoles and what you're expecting to see tomorrow night?
Yeah, I thought they were playing as well as anybody in the league, until dropping the Clemson game at home. And they had Carolina down 14 at Carolina and just didn't handle their pressure well. And Carolina went on a huge patented run like they did, unfortunately, against us. But when I watch this group, I think for Coach Hamilton's group, like the last 2 years have probably been a down year. And I think he would probably say that in terms of what they had become and how far that program had elevated under him and the talent that they have come through there. And then when I've watched these guys the last few weeks, that's what they look like again. They're back to playing 11 guys. The kid Cameron Fletcher's out. Unfortunately, he got hurt. And that's kind of been the bug the last few years for them, but they're still playing 11 guys. And when you talk about Baba Miller and Corrin and Green, the size they have up front, their length, athleticism, their ability to switch 1 through 5, they really take you out of all your actions. So that when you do that, that comes down to what type of players do you have in terms of, can you make plays off the bounce? And when you make plays off the bounce, can you make good decisions? So the one thing you can't do against these guys is turn the ball over, especially live ball turnovers. You turn live ball turnovers, you're going back the other way, and it's not the recipe for success against these guys, because they are going to speed you up. They are going to play fast. They are going to play a lot of guys. And, we've got to make sure that we do a good job of trying to pick on the matchups that we like and make sure we play in space, and when we get to congestion, protect the ball and try to make the correct read. But, these guys, Clemson did a great job on them defensively. I think they only scored 67. So these guys, until that game, a little bit let down for them, but they've looked as good as anybody in our league.
Yeah, and you guys are playing great basketball, working real hard. You're fun to watch. Keep it going tomorrow. Another tough one tomorrow. Another big one tomorrow inside the Dome against Florida State. Best of luck, Gerry, and we'll talk to you again in a few days here.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, SU assistant coach Gerry McNamara, brought to you every week by William Mattar.
Florida State's resume is a weird one. I was going to compare it to Syracuse the past couple of years, but they have 2 quad 1 wins, 2 quad 3 or quad 2 losses, 3 quad 3 losses. But they've gotten better as the season's gone along.
Yeah, 11-7, right. They're playing good basketball. I mean, they lost to Lipscomb, which that's
you don't just roll the balls out against Lipscomb and hope to come.
And then
out
after that, they won 5 in a row. They beat Wake Forest, they beat Virginia Tech, beat Miami at Miami, and then they ended up losing at home to Clemson. Right, it's
funny
an odd resume.
Lipscomb, like people don't realize you have games like that early on in the season that catch off. Like you're just not ready at that point sometimes. Like Syracuse almost did it again this year with Colgate.
Right.
They got through it this year.
Right.
They had Bryant last year.
Right.
It happens to everybody.
Right. For Florida State, that's a 3-point loss. Syracuse beat Colgate by 4 or whatever it was. If that result is flip-flopped, then this is a different conversation. But listen, SU's playing good basketball, and they've held serve at home. They've held serve in these toss-up games. They got another one of these tomorrow night against the Seminoles. We'll take a timeout. Full lines open the rest of the way. 315-437-7644. Back after this on ESPN Radio.